Hello everybody, we are now on the final day of 14 days of following the energy in life and biz. And we're ending today with money, pricing, abundance, something really not sticky at all for anyone, right? Not sticky at all for anyone. Hello, welcome everybody. I'm just jumping on, as we all say, jumping onto live to initiate the final of this series. I've gone 14 days in a row of going live, of talking about following the energy in life and biz, and a lot of major topics that I just love to chat about, and things that I facilitate in my one-on-ones, in my group programs, and all sorts of things. And I wanted to chat a little bit about pricing today because it's something that has come up for my Activate folks, for my EFT folks, where there tends to be a trend, a trend of navigating, I need to charge what I'm worth, or also like severely undercharging / free. How many of you, if you are selling things, do you feel like you are undercharging or are feeling really sticky around your pricing? And this is something to look at because the whole idea of charging your worth actually doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because would an infinite being be worth a certain dollar amount? No. Money is just energy. And so it's like saying, well, I'm this much energy and you're this much energy and that is this much. I mean, it's all perspective. It's all where someone's at and what energy exchange feels good. And so when we're looking at pricing, it's like a lot of our money stuff comes up, like our own personal wounding around it. Like how comfortable are we having it? How comfortable are we receiving it? How comfortable are we spending it? What in those three areas are you more or less? Like, are you most comfortable receiving, having, or spending? Spending's like a comfort zone. Like I'm an easy spender. Having's like is something I've been training myself to get accustomed to. And in times of dysregulation, it's easy for me to go into like create scarcity. Holy yes, I'm a big friggin' deal on paper, and yet I always give away for free. Yes. Yeah, and it's like, could you even really put a price to everything you are on paper, along with all of the life experiences, all of the embodied experiences, right? It's like, you know what you have to offer is huge and life-changing for a person who is ready to receive it. Like someone who's a really good match for that and is ready to receive it, it can just be like, you can't put a price on that. You really can't. You can't put a price on that transformation. And so I seek to get my clients out of the idea of like, well, this is the right price, or this is what I should do, or this is too little, or this is too much. It's like, what would be fun to charge? Because if you've decided, well, this is the right price, or this is what I should do, and I'm whatever, and you are funky about it, then you're going to feel resentful, right? If you're not charging a certain amount, you're going to feel resentful, and that's not a helpful place to be with where you're at, especially free, right? Because there is no exchange there, really. And I'm trying to think, did I post about this yesterday or all the days are blending together. I posted about this recently because people don't get that you actually value something more when you spend more on it. So if you just think for a moment, if you were to pay $0 for a session, let's say a session with a healer, just like whatever healing it is, a session with a healer, you pay $0 for it. It's like, you might be like, oh, this is nice and this is lovely, and oh, I think I got some change, and yada yada. Now imagine if you spent $2,000 with that session. One session, $2,000. You would likely show up very different. It's like, if you could get out of your nervous system dysregulation about it or scarcity or whatnot and show up, you'd be like absorbing every molecule of that time together. And you'd really be seeking at what else is possible. Wow, what can I receive from that? Like, it's so different. So I'm not saying that like that amount is right. I'm not saying that. I'm just offering for perspective to see how people show up and receive differently. Yeah, receiving is a tough one. Yeah, and so then it makes sense, right? If like you're giving away things for free, then that's a good indication that you do struggle with receiving. And so this is receiving all sorts of things. So it's helpful that this is kind of the one we're coming to the end with, because receiving is a pretty complex, abstract, huge topic to look at, because it's not just receiving the energetics of money, it's receiving all energies, which means being willing to show up and expose yourself and be you, right? So what does that look like? Showing up on live or allowing someone to give you money for something? Because ultimately it's all just a choice. It's all just a choice in what people are buying or not buying. I'm in a new space in my life and I don't have my 10K hours and I feel like I don't know enough, which is total BS. Yeah, and so it's kind of like when our nervous system is in a state and it's doing its thing, then our mind is going to tell ourselves a story to match that radio station. And so, especially when you're in the unknown space and that kind of thing, and then it's like, well, I don't know, because maybe people aren't really buying, and like, so it's like, I don't know, I need more certifications and I need more degrees, and it's like, hello, been there. I was just like, how many certifications can I get? Maybe it's the next one. And I talked about this in previous videos. Maybe it's the next thing outside of myself, the next healing modality. That's going to be it. That'll be it. And that'll be good. That'll be good. No, there's always more. And so it's like, wow. And a lot of these, anyways, I could go into all sorts of things. A lot of them have a lot of overlap and yada, yada. And so I got clear that no, it's about like, what do I know? What am I aware of here? What am I willing to be, receive, perceive? All of the things that we've been talking about. I keep going back and forth with my pricing. When people don't bite for my big prices, I start to panic. Yeah. So that's where it's like, we're really seeking, and I'm like with you with this, we're really seeking to get to a place of being more neutral with our like response to all of this, because big pricing is just interesting. It's just interesting. Again, it's like, how much capacity do we have to receive that level of wealth, of finances, things like that. Because when I look back over my time at charging a plethora of prices, I have examples for people paying my highest, and I have examples of people not paying my lowest, and vice versa. So it's just interesting. And so what I look at is like, what would it take to do what works and to continue to show up no matter what? Because I tend to heavily invest in myself, and not everyone does that. Some people do, some people don't, right? I always pay through my commitments. I always pay off my payments. Whatever I commit to, even if I don't use it, I pay it off. Not everyone does that. And so it's like, when you realize people do all sorts of funny things with money, what would it take for you to continue to show up regardless? Especially in this entrepreneurial journey, because it's like, it's just like, either you keep going or you stop. And the faster you can pivot and choose, despite the external reality not reflecting back to you what you desire, then you can keep going. Because usually we're in the future. We're very aware of the future. We're aware of possibilities. So it's almost like we're functioning from there. It's like, I can taste it, feel it. The next iteration's there, the money's there, all the things. And it's like before it even shows up in our reality. And then we're like functioning as if it's there, but it's not. And it's seriously, 4 certifications, and I keep buying more to keep preoccupied. Sure. And so you can just look at, where am I distracted? There, I did call them distractions. Did I? Yes. 8, week 8, or day 8. Distractions. It's like, where am I distracting myself to avoid showing up, to avoid looking at it, to avoid tuning inward? And this is where people are just really preoccupied with, let me consume more so I can figure it out. And so that's why my containers are very different. It's more about facilitating people back to what they know. What are they aware of? What energy are they perceiving? And building the muscle of that. So what am I aware of? Okay, cool. What's going to be light? Okay, cool. Now let's choose it. Okay, feedback. Okay, pivot. Right? It's just that. Wash, rinse, repeat. Over and over again. What am I aware of? What's light? Choose it. Awareness. Pivot. Cool. Over and over again. Versus continuing to look and be like, well, this is the right pricing. This is the right strategy. This is the blah, 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 blah. What's going to work? What works? What works for you? And if you are in a place where you're like sticky around your pricing, it like generally, it doesn't do the thing usually. It's like being able to show up in a way that's like, this price feels good. I feel good asking for it. I feel good receiving it. Or maybe it's like a little expansion of receiving, but it's like, yep, but it feels good. It feels good for the work exchange that I'm doing. That's where you want to be at. And so it's not about, again, right and wrong. It's about the yes, no of what energetically feels like that, which generally is more like light, expansive, interesting. It's interesting. It's not the right price, the wrong price. That's what I should charge. So I shouldn't charge. Oh my God, they're charging so much. I should be at that price. No, I don't feel it. Well, it's just like, bleh. What other things are coming up for folks around pricing, charging? What questions do you have around that? What I guide my clients to choose, like for when they're putting out an offer, is to just ping the prices. Ping, 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 ping. Meaning, come up with like a spectrum of things. Like let's say you have a program and you're like somewhere between $200 and $500 or something. So it's like ping, 200. What does 200 feel like charging? 300, 450, 500. Oh, okay. Like it's like you can tell there's almost a bell curve where a price will peak and feel like the most expansive and like a little, oh, I'm a little scared, but that's exciting. And then it almost goes a little too far where it's like, oh, I can't receive that. And then that's the price you want to go with. Charging for packages, multiple sessions seems large. Yeah, and so it's like, what incentive do people have for buying packages, right? So generally it's kind of like this idea of if we're doing like healing sessions or whatnot, because coaching has this whole other world with like proximity and all this business. But if we're looking at just like kind of an hourly rate, so to speak, it's like a single session then would be the most. And then a package, it's like, well, it's a package for like a deal kind of, right? It's like, that's how most major stores do things, right? You buy more, you get a deal. And so this is where if we haven't purchased things like that ourselves, if we aren't willing to do that, then it can be sticky to ask for someone else to do that. Versus if we feel really comfortable, it's like, yes, I'll buy a session pack, no problem, whatever. Then it's like, do you know what I'm saying? Because if we haven't chosen it for ourselves, like if I haven't invested in that, then it's like, it's harder for me to get behind selling it. And so for me, it's like, I don't charge above what I have already invested for myself in some capacity, whether it be like one-on-one work, group program work I've done, like classes, whatever. I've invested like quite a bit. So I'm not there, I'm not charging at that place because that's what I can get behind. That's what I can get behind, right? But if I'm like going way over something I've never done before, then it's kind of hard for me to be at that same place, monetarily wise. Again, it's all just interesting. Because to somebody, the session pack could be like just totally out of their reach, right? And for like, if I look at myself like back in the day and before I even started posting on Crest Couch, it's like something more than $300 would have been like way out of not what I could choose, unless there was like a really low payment plan or something. So it's like, for some people, that'll be way out of reach. For someone else, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's like a dinner out, no big. So it's all perspective, right? And so if we decide and our point of view is it's large, it's too much to ask for, well then it's like that will be continued to be reflected back to us. And then it's like you get more and more people are like, nah. I mean, you're always going to get people to some degree that are just going to say no anyways. That's normal. And it's like, if your point of view is it's too big, then it's like that will just continue to be shown back to you. So what would it take for you to be willing to receive session pack prices? Because ultimately, it's not about you asking for the money or you getting money from somebody or whatever. It's about the other person choosing an experience, a possibility that's going to change their life in some way, that's going to create ease in their life in some way. You have information or something that they don't have that will facilitate them getting to the next place if they're willing to receive and choose it. That's the whole other thing. As coaches, healers, therapists, or whatnot, if you offer some sort of non-tangible product, right? If it's like transformation or healing or something like that, it's like really hard to, like, this is what you get. It's like, well, you get what you are willing to choose and receive, because that's what change comes from. So it's like very much less about the practitioner and more about, the client who's there and if they're in a space of receiving. Because, wow, I'm thinking back to my VA days when I was doing therapy and working with veterans, and I saw all sorts of folks. And some of my clients, and this was in a space where I didn't really have a lot of choice in who I could see. It pretty much had to, unless it was like really a bad fit for some reason, but we basically kind of had to see anyone who came in. And I had examples of veterans who were like obsessed with me and had a lot of transformation and were like, oh my God, you're life changing, blah, blah, blah. And then I had like examples of veterans who hated me, could not stand me, and thought I was terrible and awful and blah, 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 and everywhere in between. And so having over a decade of that like therapy experience and working with a lot of different folks, I learned really early on that I'm like, this is not personal. This is just like, is it a good fit? Is this person willing to receive from me or not? Strangely, it's not entirely money for me. It's about, can I create transformation? I take on their journey and put it on me. And if they don't do the work and don't get results, then it's on me. Oh, yeah. And so it's like, I'm trying to think of which day I talked about this in, but it's kind of the idea of the codependent energy, right? Taking responsibility for how people are showing up and what they're choosing. And it's like, yes, we can do all the things of letting people know, informed consent, and, holding boundaries or highlighting if someone is always showing late or things like that, or highlighting if they're not choosing to do the work. and let them know like, hey, this really the transformation comes from action. And that's what I tell folks often in a first session with me is I'm here to reflect things back to you, facilitate you out of your blind spots, and kind of, hold your feet to the fire, so to speak. And a lot of transformation is going to come from what you are willing to receive and choose, and the action you take in between time seeing me. The action you see. Oh, thanks, pound sign. It's less about the money for me and more about the feeling. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing that. Yeah. So I'm curious, other folks who are healers or therapists, coaches, or whatever you're doing, do you feel responsible for other people's transformation, for what they get? And it's so interesting because I see this even with like the money piece, and that people are like, well, okay, so what is the program, and like, what do I get out of it? How many hours do I get? How long are the calls? And like, how often do we interact? Like, what do I get? And it's like, well, it's not even about the like tit for tat, like the hourly rate, so to speak, because as you start to do more of this like money mindset work, you start to realize that it's kind of, it's fluid in the sense that you can invest in something and like every single time I get something totally different out of it. And so there's been plenty of times where I've been in containers where I didn't like use up all my sessions, so to speak, or attend every group call or like consume every bit of it, because to me it's like, it's not about that. It's not like I didn't get my every minute, my every hour. It's not about that. It's like I got what I came for. I received the transformation already. Okay, cool. I'm on to the next. So it's less about that, right? But it's going to be on me, on what I'm willing to receive and choose. And I've also been in containers where it's not been like the right fit for me. And it's like, I chose this, I committed to this. Okay, I said I was going to pay for the 4 months. I'm doing that. And I got a lot of awareness and I got a lot of clarity on something I didn't even expect. How does it get better than that? I must have been asking for something, right? When you ask, you receive, and a lot of times it just shows up in a completely different way. This money one's like a huge topic, lots of stickiness around it, and I get that I'll definitely be doing a month or multiple in Activate, because it's just something that we all need to work through, right? Because it's like our money stuff is really just based on, our points of view about things, and then how are we responding to it, our behaviors with it. Are we using it for coping to some degree? Are we holding on to it for protection? Are we spending to numb out? Like, what are we choosing here? Are we blocking receiving because we're not willing to show up or expose ourselves or set the price that feels good? So what would it take for you to just be willing to put it out there and continue to show up even when you don't have the data in front of you? Because it's like the data needs to catch up to the energy you be. You have to be it for a period of time first, and then the data can come. But if we're like, I be it, I raised my price, and it's like, why is no one buying? 2 minutes later, like, well, are you behind it? Are you behind it? Have you let people know? Have you given enough time? Have you really embodied that price? Right? Because like also like certain pricing kind of comes with a certain level of energy, potency, confidence. What is that? Are you behind it? So it's like a whole slew of things to look at. I definitely encourage you all to review any of the other lives, or I put them on YouTube on a binge playlist, because there's just like a lot in these videos, and you will hear it differently the second time you listen. You're like, she said that? Because we can only receive so much at any given time based on like where our radio station's at. We can only receive so much that's like close enough to our receiver. So tune in again, seek to hear things openly, because it will change you at a cellular level. You're different now. You're different now. Will you acknowledge that? Absolutely. This was so fun joining you all for 14 days of following the energy in life and biz. I'm sure more things will come down the line. I love jumping on here, and it's great to also host it on YouTube because it's just an easier way to listen to, I think, for the long term, of course, right? So if you are feeling pinged to jump into something, to have more support, I have like multiple options of things. Of course, I always have like different types of one-on-one work. And I right now have Activate and Accelerate. Not to be confusing at all, but Activate is my membership. So my membership for entrepreneurs, and this experience is live trainings. So trainings where each month I'm going through a different program. September was Get Seen on Social. It was all around the energetics of showing up as you, being you, exposing you, and just all the kind of pragmatics around that, along with like practical business stuff, but it's like mostly energetics, but we are talking about like what works, what doesn't work, you know? And then this month, what are we doing? Let your biz tell you what to do, which I know some people are like, what is that? What are you talking about? Like, I need strategy, I need marketing. I'm like, yes, and what would it take for you to tune in to what your business is asking to be created? What does your business want to be? What is the energy of that? Are you asking it questions? Are you tuning into that? Are you following the energy truly in your business? Or are you forcing it into submission? And then it's like, I don't want to be that. Because your business is an entity, right? And so it's like, it's a process to remember our language of energy and be able to communicate with ease with it. So we're doing that, and our masterclass of the month is Forget Scared, Be Scary. And that's all about being the energetic boundary, not just like stating your boundary, it's being the boundary. And if you followed me for any length of time, you know that's like my thing. That's what I've done on TikTok forever, role plays of boundaries. And I just want folks to get like, what does it take to be the entrepreneurial boundary, the potency, the power, all of that. So that is what October looks like. So Activate is a 6-month commitment. It's a 6-month commitment because it's like, you ready to show up for yourself? Then will you show up even when the time gets tough? Not in the first month when you're like, yay, I'm so excited. And you're like, month 2, no, I can't keep doing this. It's like, no, it's not that. That's not the vibe. Because if you chose entrepreneurship, it's like a marathon. It's like the lifelong journey, right? It's a lifestyle is what I tell folks. So needing those skills to keep going when it gets tough, knowing what to pivot and choose other things. So that's why it is a 6-month commitment. Of course, you can stay longer and join us, but I just love that it's like plug in and let's go. So then you don't have to miss out on anything else, really, like any other programs or masterclasses I'm creating, because it's all in there. So that is Activate, and that starts tomorrow. So like doors are closing tomorrow, like end of the day. We have our first call tomorrow for our October program. So I would love to have you in. Accelerate, on the other hand, is quite different in that it's like a mini mind. So it's a 6-week, so quite the opposite, 6 months, 6 weeks. So it's like the potent launching pad for you. And this is like mastermind energy, which means calls are facilitation, hot seat coaching. So it's more organically created based on the energy of the group and what they're requiring and the questions you have. So it's like me facilitating you. So you get a lot of that going on versus Activate is the live training. So although you're there like engaging in the chat, it's just quite different than being unmuted and like conversing, etc., back and forth. So Accelerate also has a one-on-one call. So if you want to do that, because generally my one-on-one package things are like 6-month commitments. So I wonder what that will create for you, because that's a chance for me to get my eyes on your business and in the energy of your business, right? It's like, yes, details, and what's the energy of it? What's the vibe? What's light? What's heavy? And like navigating the lightness and heaviness with you. So I'm really excited about this because it's brand new. And Yeah, we're going to start October 12th with that one. So which next week. So if you choose it before the end of the day on the 7th, you get my September Activate bundle free. Because you already know. You know if it's pinging you? You know. So that bundle is the program and the masterclass of the month with an Activate, which was Get Seen on Social and Obliterating Doubt. Very important topics. So, folks ask me like, what's the difference? And, I talked about it in my stories today. And trust that you know if it will create greater for you. And it's like, will you be willing to choose it and follow that? All right, y'all. I'll see you on the gram.